The ice cream challenge comes to an end, and more coming up on today's episode of the latest in tech news. Hey Gadgeteer, you're just in time for the latest episode of the world's only 3-in-1 show on tech, gadgets, and gaming news. That's right, this is the latest in tech news. My name is Taylor Merrick, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now so that you don't miss out on the latest episode. And, well, if you're looking to like something, wait till you get to a part of the show that you actually like to like. See what I did there? And speaking of what's to like or not like or lick, be that as it may, apparently the ice cream challenge is coming to an end. I got a couple funny videos that I wanted to show you. I know, videos? Can I actually show these? Yes, I can show these as far as I know. They're really short videos, so they don't really have anything to worry about. We'll also be taking a look at the Apple Macbook Pro with Touch Bar 2019 price, specs, and release date. We'll also be taking a look at the Sony Xperia One. Apparently, this wasn't the good review, so we'll be taking a look at that. Also, we'll be taking a look at AirPods 3 with water resistance expected to launch later on this year. We'll also be taking a look at Logitech's G Pro X headset helps you sound like a pro streamer, and if you're into gaming or streaming or anything of that nature, you'll definitely want to tune in to that. Also, we'll be taking a look at No Man's Sky developer offering advice for EA and Bethesda. Or Bethesda, I keep messing up the name, whatever. And finally, we'll be taking a look at, well, a new update, new item coming to Fortnite. Their latest weapon lets you summon airstrikes with a grenade. But before we get into all of that, how well do you know Injustice 2? You know, the video game fighter that you can get on essentially every console or PC or heck, even mobile? Well, how well do you know it? I played the game plenty enough for my own, but turns out there is a clash quote between the Joker and Black Adam. The former will ask if he met that other lightning guy, and the latter will respond by saying with the bamboo hat, yes. In case you didn't know what they're referencing there, that was a little bit of an Easter egg to Raiden from Mortal Kombat, another fighter game. So in case you didn't know that, oh yes, game developers love teasing each other on other games. So with that out of the way, let's head on over to today in tech history. Alright, today is July 9th, 2019. On this day in 1982, Disney released Tron, the first mainstream film to use extensive computer-generated graphics and special effects. 1982, guys. Let's just say Terminator was a step up above that, and Terminator came out later in the decade. Starring Jeff Bridges, the film also had a computer-related plot in which a programmer is transported into a computer to fight a program called Master Control and replace it with the more reliable Tron system. Also, on this day in tech history in 1997, Apple Computer announces the resignation of Gil Amelio as CEO. Having been ousted by the board of directors, Amelio's departure paved the way for Steve Jobs to retake the helm of Apple. Ironically, it was Amelio who brought Jobs back into the fold of Apple by purchasing Jobs' company Next to use as the basis for the next Mac operating system. And, well, the legacy of Steve Jobs lives on since then. Also, and finally, on this day in 1981 is, the game that launched two of the most famous characters in video game history was released. Any guesses as to what that game was? Any guesses? Donkey Kong. Created by Nintendo, a Japanese playing card and toy company turned fledgling video game developer who was trying to create a hit game for the North American market. Unable at the time to acquire a license to create a video game based on a Popeye character, Nintendo decides to create a game mirroring the characteristics and rivalry of Popeye and Bluto. Donkey Kong is named after the game's villain, a pet gorilla gone rogue. The game's hero is originally called Jumpman, but he is retroactively renamed Mario once the game becomes popular and Nintendo decides to use the character in future games. Due to the similarity between Donkey Kong and King Kong, here we go, little tidbit of history for you. Universal Studios sued Nintendo claiming Donkey Kong violated their trademark. Kong, however, is common Japanese slang for gorilla. The lawsuit was ruled in favor of Nintendo. The success of Donkey Kong helped Nintendo become one of the dominant companies in the video game market and one of the big three to this day. And with that out of the way, let's head on over to today's feature story. Okay, so I know you guys are wondering when I'm going to talk about this. Apparently this is this great big fad that decided to blow up rather recently. Apparently it was called the Ice Cream Challenge, where you would go to a store, a grocery store, go to the freezer section, find a tub of ice cream, open it, lick it, and then return the tub to the freezer. And in case you didn't know and you're completely oblivious to it, by now many of you probably know that a video of a young woman who opened a tub of Bluebell ice cream in a Texas food store, licked it, and returned the tub to the freezer went viral. Several people unfortunately recorded themselves copying the prank, and things started to get so out of hand that stores added additional security to their frozen food aisles. Yeah, who would have thought you'd have to see police standing next to frozen food because they're worried somebody's gonna lick the ice cream. This world is stupid. Anyways, we're pleased to announce that there's another, more wholesome layer to this ice cream challenge saga and why it's finally ending, and the people who are actually creating hilarious videos to go along with it. Many tweets that use the ice cream challenge hashtag included lighthearted videos that thankfully don't feature people tampering with ice cream. Instead, they show people mocking the absurdly gross and dangerous challenge by reorganizing freezers, performing fake out licks, and actually purchasing the ice cream and then walking outside the store and then licking it. There are even videos that show people buying ice cream normally. Can you imagine that? This reminds me of the stupid fad that took off, like, what was it, like a year or two ago? Maybe a little bit more than that. The coning challenge, where apparently you went to a fast food place and you ordered an ice cream cone, and when you got the ice cream cone, you apparently grabbed it by the cone, not by the cone, by the ice cream itself, and said, "Hey, thanks." And then some people took it a next step and decided to throw it back at the employees, which was a stupid thing and ruined the entire genuinely funny prank. You remember that? Yeah. Yeah, apparently it backfired a lot. My wife was telling me one of her siblings worked at a fast food place and he saw it coming. Somebody was going to try to throw the ice cream back at them, so he kind of flipped it in their lap. So yeah, see how funny things quickly become stupid and then quickly become out of control? Well, I got a couple videos for you guys of it actually going the right way. I'm trying to remember which one. Let's see if it's this one. I think so. Here we go. Right. Here's the video.
Here we go.
Did that.
And then he licks it. So that was the camera on Twitter. We just watched a video, and if you guys were wondering, what was that? Yes, we just watched a video. Did you know that we do this as a YouTube show? Head on over to youtube.com/TechNewsGadget if you want to actually see the full show. Otherwise, if you're on the go, feel free to listen to the podcast version available on Apple, Google, Spotify, everywhere else you can listen to podcasts. So that was pretty funny. I like this guy, how right at the end he was like, nailed it. I like it. Who would have thought you could have fun with the ice cream challenge? And it just turns out, I think that by far this is probably the best video of all of the lists here. And all he did is he bought the ice cream, took it home, and licked it. Wow. Incredible. So in case you're wondering if it's going to continue on much longer, the ice cream licking will hopefully come to an end now that authorities have warned people to steer clear of the prank. But if you are concerned, here are some tips for purchasing. Try to go for a brand that protects the ice cream container with a safety seal. You can also make an effort to get your carton from the back of the freezer, and if you're really desperate, you can cut the top layer of the carton off. Now that is dedication, so keep an eye out on that. But yeah, What are your thoughts on the whole ice cream challenge? Did you actually partake in the hilarious proper way to do it, which is to buy the ice cream, take it home, and then lick it? Or what are your thoughts? I don't know. My thoughts are, well, you already heard them. It's funny, stupid, but the funny thing of the ice cream challenge was actually not licking it in the store, but actually purchasing the ice cream and then licking it. That was pretty funny. That's the perfect answer to this meme. I'm so glad the trolls came out of the woodwork and decided to do it justice. Thank you, Reddit, for showing us just how stupid humanity can be at times, and Twitter for inventing the hashtag and allowing us to just continue being stupid. But anyways, those are my thoughts on the entire thing. If you guys did you have any idea about any of this going on? If you did, let me know down in the comments. If you didn't, let me know what your thoughts are, good, bad, or otherwise. Love to continue the discussion. Thank you to all those who are joining in the discussion. I enjoy having conversations and comments and thoughts shared between us. It's kind of funny and silly at the same time, this entire challenge. But with that out of the way, let's head on over to our next story. So, we got a bunch of gadget news and then a couple video game articles, so we'll be getting into that. But first, if you're wondering, hey, how can I get the article links to everything that you covered on the show today? Well, here's how you do it. Head on over to TechNewsGadget.net, and you can get all the show notes there that you'd like. Also, if you're listening via the podcast, you have it super simple. All you literally have to do is open the app that you're listening to this podcast in, go to the show notes or however you get that information, and it's right there in the show notes, in the description. You can click on the article, well, tap on the article, because it's not a computer and you don't have a mouse. So, there you go. With that out of the way, well, Apple's new MacBook Pro goes all in on the touch bar. Summer is a time for rejuvenation, don't you think? Well, it's time to reflect on what's important and what can be let go. Now, that applies to Apple's laptop line, which on Tuesday, today, got a mid-summer refresh. It involves shuffles and spec bumps, big and small, but mostly if you need a MacBook Pro, hope you like the touch bar. The touch bar, first introduced in 2016, had already subsumed most of the MacBook Pro line, but until now, the entry-level 13-inch MPB retrained physical function keys. Its status as a holdout earned it an unofficial name, the MacBook Escape, after the key that the touch bar had banished. No longer. Apple has now outfitted its least expensive MacBook Pro with a touch bar and Touch ID, meaning MacBook Pro buyers henceforth must resign themselves to a thin OLED strip at the top row over their keyboards. That or get shopping in the refurb aisle. Now, really, this shouldn't come as much of a surprise. It didn't make sense for Apple to have such a glaring feature imbalance in its MacBook Pro line, but it might come as a disappointment, especially for those who have dismissed the touch bar as a gimmick. In practice, it's at least unlikely to make your daily MacBook Pro experience worse, and having ready access to Touch ID on your keyboard is a genuine boon. So, in the meantime, while Apple says it has fixed its butterfly switch keyboard woes, there's a possibility that the company will revert to a more reliable scissors switch version in a not-so-distant future. It might make sense to see how that plays out before committing to this generation of laptops. Apple will reportedly include these latest MacBooks in its free keyboard repair program, which on the one hand is great, and on the other doesn't really inspire that much confidence that they won't continue to get jammed up. The new base-level MacBook Pro features less immediately obvious changes as well. It gets an overdue spec bump to Intel's latest 1.4 GHz quad-core i5 chip, along with a True Tone display, which dials the color temperature up or down automatically depending on ambient light. It starts at $1,300 or $1,200 for college students. And for those who can't be bothered with a touch bar, Apple's MacBook Air persists, so you can always get the MacBook Air. It's a wee bit spec bump. It also has a True Tone display and a $100 price cut. The Air now starts at $1,100 or $1,000 even for college students. Now, as part of the reshuffling, Apple has laid the 12-inch MacBook to rest. First introduced in 2015, the MacBook was ultralight, had a single USB-C port, and came in a flashy rose gold colorway. It was innovative and gorgeous as far as laptops really go here, but it was never really quite clear who it was for. When Apple finally recommitted the MacBook Air last year, the MacBook became largely redundant. Now, if you find yourself feeling the loss deeply? Well, Apple's refurbished section is once again here in your dire need. So if there are any major takeaways from this relatively minor announcement, it's that Apple's computer lineup finally makes at least more sense about it. MacBook Pro means more power and a touch bar. Thin and light means MacBook Air. Simple. The permutations and chaff have finally fallen away. Focus and clarity and tying up loose ends. What else is summer for? Well, taking naps and not working, that's what I'll tell you that. I'll tell you right there. Let's get on to the next gadget. I think something fell in my eye again. Seriously, I can't see anything well enough. So, I'm sorry guys, but there's really something in my eye. Oh, that was the Sony Xperia One. Apparently, this comes to us from AndroidHeadlines.com. I guess it's titled The Bad Review, and we'll be figuring out why it's bad. I don't know why. It's not my opinion on it. It'll be the opinion of the person who wrote this article. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them about it. But one look at the Xperia One, you'll see that it's a pretty tall smartphone, even though it's just a 21:9 aspect ratio. And a lot of other phones are now pushing that 19.5:9 aspect ratio. But is that something that potential buyers can look past when thinking about buying the Xperia One? Well, let's find out now. Oh, but there's a disclaimer. At Android Headlines, we do 2 reviews for each smartphone. There's the good review and then the bad review. This is the bad review, where we only talk about what's wrong with the smartphone. If you're looking to find out what is good about the smartphone, you'll want to read the good review as well, and you'll have your full picture. But I figured we'd talk on this a little bit. So, triple cameras are great unless they are slow, and this is something I wanted to get into. They wanted Sony to go with multiple cameras for quite some time, and now it's finally gone with 3 cameras. An ultra wide angle lens, wide angle, and then a telephoto lens, which gives you the best of all 3 worlds, right? Well, wrong. Switching from the main and telephoto lens to the ultra wide angle lens is very, very slow. It's actually comical how slow it is, especially for a company that also is a camera company. We thought the Galaxy S10 was slow to switch between cameras, but Sony, the Xperia One makes it look fast, and realistically it's the only slow thing about the Xperia One, unfortunately. But in that time that you're waiting for the camera to switch, you'll likely miss out on that shot that you're trying to capture anyways. And the camera app is also pretty slow to open in general. The wide angle camera is also not all that great. Typically it's the telephoto lens that really lets everyone down, but this time around it's the ultra wide angle lens. It's not really as crisp as you might expect, and a lot of times the images can come out a bit muddy. These are all things that Sony can fix with some software updates, and it's most likely coming, so it might not be that much of a deal breaker necessarily, at least not yet. As for the 21:9 displays, they're still kind of awkward on smartphones. In case you hadn't heard, well, it's a pretty tall smartphone. I mean, look at it, the Sony Xperia One. It sports a 21:9 aspect ratio, and the reason for this is that Sony saw the trends in the market pointing towards taller smartphones. So, well, figures it had to scale up, and it looks good for media consumption, but for normal use cases like scrolling through Twitter, messing around on Facebook, answering emails, it's really not the best display to use. It's pretty tall, but Sony did a better job at making it manageable over the Xperia 10 and Xperia 10 Plus. So on Sony's mid-range phones that also have this same aspect ratio, the company decided to give it a big forehead and no chin. With the Xperia One, it decided to give it an almost equal forehead and chin. That makes it more manageable instead of feeling weird holding it. Despite having a larger display, it actually feels smaller than the Xperia 10 and 10 Plus, which just goes to show you that eliminating bezels isn't always a good thing. Also, in case you were worried, it is the world's most slippery smartphone. As the kids say, the Xperia One is pretty darn slippery. And, well, according to the author who wrote this, can't tell you how many times the Xperia One has slid off my desk or table onto the floor. Luckily, it hasn't gotten scratched or cracked yet, but it's only a matter of time before that happens. Unfortunately, Sony does not include a case in the box, so you're going to need to go out and get one for yourself. And if we're honest, it's the first thing you should probably buy for the smartphone, as a case is almost a requirement with this one. Now, it's not so slippery that it slid out of your hand, but on a flat surface, it will slide off. Not ideal, so a thin case is going to be the way to go here. As for gimmicks, well, the Xperia One is full of them, from side sense to just about every mode in the camera and even PS4 Remote Play. These are all gimmicks that Sony is going to get you to buy the phone, but you really shouldn't buy it for those gimmicks, and here's why. Side sense is an okay feature when it works. That's what makes it a gimmick. You're supposed to be able to double tap the side of the phone and it will open up a menu with some different apps that you can open up without going home and going to the app drawer to find it. However, during their time using the phone, it almost never actually opened up when you double tapped on the side of the phone. However, when I wasn't trying to open side sense, it would pop open, which means it's pretty buggy, and hopefully that can be fixed in the software update as well. Then there are the many gimmick camera modes that are included. When I first tapped on the modes button in the camera app, I was pretty disappointed. There are virtually no modes in that menu that you would actually use normally, except for slow-mo, AR effect, and creative sound. Cool, and yeah, you'll check them out when you first get it, but after the first couple of days, you'll never really use them. Then there's manual, panorama, portrait selfie, and Google Lens. They're useful, but the portrait selfie is really almost a waste of space since there is a bokeh button on the top of the camera to essentially turn on portrait mode. So yeah, sure, most of the camera modes these days are also pretty gimmicky, but the ones that you're going to use, at least, like macro, getting an up-close shot of a flower is one that you use spring and summer, or a food mode for taking a shot of your food and then posting it on Instagram. Don't act like you don't do it, because we all know you do, but AR effect? Yeah, you'll probably use that one, and that's really about it. As for the PS4 Remote Play, it's less of a gimmick and just a why does it suck so much, and why is it only for Sony smartphones? Like the name implies, it allows you to play your PlayStation 4 remotely, which is a pretty nice feature to have for the gamers out there, but there are some limitations. For one, you need to be on the same Wi-Fi network, which means you can't play it outside or elsewhere. It also is pretty darn laggy. They did play a few games on it in the same room as the PS4 and the router, and it was pretty laggy. In first-person shooter games, it is not ideal at all, not to mention the fact that the frame rates were pretty low and resolution was only 540p on a 4K display phone. So, gimmicks sell phones all too often. These days, I wish smartphone makers would get away from these gimmicks and just produce features that are actually going to work. SideSense does sound like a pretty good feature, but since it doesn't work the majority of the time, it kind of falls into that gimmick category. Also, Sony didn't seem to get the memo on wireless charging. Even though this wireless charging, you've probably heard about it, it's made a resurgence in the past couple of years. Almost every smartphone has it, except for a few, like Sony. They don't. It's slow, but there's really no excuse for Sony not to include it, seeing as it is using a glass back, and it also has a pretty small battery inside. There's likely enough room for a couple QI coils inside for some wireless charging, but it's not there. But hey, at least it's waterproof. So to wrap up, the Sony Xperia One is the most exciting Sony phone in many years, but it's still not perfect, and in many areas it does not stand up to other smartphones that are in the $900 to $1,000 price range. Though many of the downsides we talked about here could be fixed with some software updates, Sony is not really exactly known for pushing out a lot of software updates, so it's more like what you see is what you get. Though if Sony could fix up some of the issues, it would make the Xperia One a pretty impressive device. Sony is also not selling the Xperia One through carriers, which really limits how many people would even be interested in buying this phone. It does, however, work on AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon, leaving out Sprint, because, can you hear me now? Exactly. Alright, moving on. AirPods 3 is coming out. So Apple plans to release 3rd gen AirPods with water resistance in late 2019. The first 2 generations of AirPods, in case you're wondering, do not have IP-rated water or dust resistance. In a research note released this week, it looks like the new AirPods will be released in time for the holiday shopping season this year and may also feature some unspecified design enhancements. AirPods have had the same design since the original pair launched in December of 2016. Now, if the info lines up with the rumors about the new AirPods launching within the next year, well, looks like we might finally get water resistance. So if you happen to take it off and go bloop, you're okay, because it still works. I still worry sometimes with this phone. I don't have the latest gen phone, but this is at least the one that is water resistant to a point. I like that feature. I wish it would show up on more gadgets more often. So, what did I say? They're also possibly expecting the 3rd generation AirPods to have noise cancellation as well. And they are figuring that the new models are going to have an all-new form factor design and a higher price than the second generation AirPods, retailing at $159. They also said that the headphone quality is said to be studio and will likely have Apple branding. So in case you're curious about, well, AirPod 3, well, now you have it. All right, gamers, streamers, listen up. Got a cool new gadget for you guys. It's the Logitech G Pro X headset. Yeah. After teasing it earlier this week, Logitech has now revealed its new gaming headset designed to make you sound like a professional streamer. The G Pro X marks the debut of Blue Voice software, which includes a suite of real-time mic effects that will let you tune your voice based on your individual preferences. Out of the box, you'll be able to select preset filter profiles that match your own voice's unique tone and volume, or you can customize the filter using pro-grade effects such as a compressor, de-esser, and de-popper. According to Hamlin's, pro gamer with TSM Fortnite, he was blown away by the way the headset's microphone sounded, adding that they made a headset sound like a broadcast mic. That's just dope. And that's what Hamlin said about it. Working off of Logitech's previous headsets, the new offering has also had a significant design upgrade. Its lightweight design is made from aluminum and steel and features soft memory foam earpads and a leatherette wrapped headband, so it's both durable and comfortable and perfect for long-haul competition gaming. In case you are curious, you want to purchase it, the headset will be hitting select retailers this July and retail for $130 US. So look at that headset. Oh, perfect. So if you guys are looking for something at least worth your while and won't break the bank, and you don't have to have all of this other stuff just to make it big or make it good or sound decent enough, here's what I think. Perfect option for you guys. Perfect option. I'm actually kind of convinced a little bit myself, although I'm a little bit biased towards Razer just because I have most of their peripherals scattered around anyways. I will say, for the headset that I have, this microphone, it does a decent enough job. But I actually desperately want to test this out for my own self and give you guys a better review on that. So hopefully I can get in touch with somebody. If actually, here's what I will say. If you're interested in wanting me to do a review on the Logitech G Pro X, let me know down in the comments section. That goes a long way to helping me convince them to send me a review product. I've done review products in the past. Matter of fact, one went over really well, and I know you guys got a kick out of that one. The Vortex, for sure. And if you want this one to be reviewed as well, hey, let me know down in the comment section. I'm actually looking forward to this one. Hopefully they did a good job and they didn't done mess it up, Ron. All right, moving on to a couple gaming articles. So, Sean Murray, you know that guy? Well, he's the guy behind No Man's Sky. He believes that the developers of Anthem and Fallout 76 should stay silent for the time being. And I think there's probably some wisdom in what he said. He knows a thing or two about a not-so-great game launch. The story of No Man's Sky is infamous by now, perhaps as a cautionary tale for overselling a game. Now, in case you were living under a rock, this much-hyped title, No Man's Sky, released in 2016, received mixed reviews, and many complained at the lack of a number of promised features. After the game failed to take off, Sean Murray and the team at Hello Games retreated for a while, vowing silence until they were ready to re-reveal an improved No Man's Sky. According to Murray, publishers like EA and Bethesda should follow a similar approach when dealing with the botched launches of Anthem and Fallout 76, respectively. In Murray's view, the best way to course-correct is by focusing efforts solely on improving the experience. As making empty promises were a big contributing factor in all of these games' perceived failures, vocalizing even more lofty goals could create further complications. So, zip your lip and get it done. Admitting that not speaking to the community was, quote, really hard, he ultimately accepted it was for the best. I sat down so many times and wrote the perfect blog post that was going to explain everything about the game's development and the roadmap going ahead, but I could see it didn't hold credibility with regards to where we are at. He then compared his struggles with No Man's Sky to those of other online heavy titles, saying publishers run the risk of getting caught in a web of sorts, mostly of their own making. You see this all the time when a big publisher will talk to the community and try to solve the problem and then get embroiled, taking up more and more of its headspace. Now, we've seen BioWare taking this approach, not offering many community updates. While this has caused the Anthem fanbase to get somewhat irritated, Marie believes the developer is making the right call. Talking about features when a game's already out isn't really that credible or interesting. Your actions are so much more important than what you say. So, suffice that to say, if you botch a launch and you plan on fixing something, just say, we're taking your feedback right now, we're listening to what you guys are saying, we're hard at work, you probably won't hear from us for a while, but believe you me, when we come out from our self-timeout prison, I don't know, of sorts, when we come back, we will finally have something worth value in a video game to give you. You see, a lot of people are upset because BioWare recently delayed the Anthem roadmap in an attempt to improve the current gameplay experience. And they were like, well, we're going to do this and then we're going to do that. Fallout 76, on the other hand, has been hyping up its soon-to-come features. As part of the already released roadmap, Bethesda has begun to heavily promote the introduction of in-game NPCs to the online multiplayer title. In addition, its all-new Battle Royale mode, Nuclear Winter, has already, been introduced. In case you didn't know that, already was. So, there you go, just a couple pointers to take away from it. And suffice that to say, if you actually were looking forward to Fallout 76 being the game that, delivered on the promises that it hyped you up for, give it some time, hold out. Usually they do a good job of actually giving the community what they want, albeit at a later date down the road. And the same could be said for, Anthem. Even though they botched that one up, I don't know how the heck you managed to do that. Oh, I know, because nobody had any clue of what was going on behind the scenes. Developers, programmers, coders, no idea, no communication. It should have just fired most of upper management because they're just completely clueless and only money-grubbing pigs. But, yeah, the same could be said for a lot of things, too. I mean, you have your eyes on the dollars, and you get completely sidetracked by everything else, and you don't really listen to what everybody else is saying about the development of the game, or you wrench down so hard that the communities or the developers are like, well, how are we supposed to communicate with you with what the people want and what we're making for them, and if this lines up with whatever's going on to create a great game. I don't know. Don't get so focused on the money. Make a good quality game that delivers on the features and promises that you hyped up. That's all I gotta say. And if you happen to mess up, that's okay. You can mess up and you can still recoup from your losses and still come out with a good game, albeit at a much lower fan base. But at least the fan base, keep this in mind, the fan base that sticks around for the game are going to be more loyal and more appreciative, and might garner back support and a more supremely loyal fan base, because they'll be like, they finally delivered on it. They made a really good quality game, and it might outlast a lot of other flash in the pan games, as it were. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say on it, because if I say any more, I'm probably going to get in trouble. But you guys can say whatever you want. Post down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys think about all of this. And finally, we got some Fortnite news. Yep, their latest weapon lets you summon airstrikes with a grenade. Now, Epic Games has added airstrikes to the Fortnite arsenal. With the weapon, you can launch a canister of colored smoke into an area and summon a hail storm of fire from above. You'll find the canisters in floor loot, chests, supply drops, vending machines, and llamas. Once the canister is launched and comes to rest, 20 missiles will appear about 120 meters above the smoke. Each missile has an explosion radius of 3.5 meters, and each missile deals damage to players and structures. And canisters seem to be a trend in Fortnite lately. Apparently, the Chug Splash has been going around great so far. And Chug Splash, players can toss it to their teammates or on themselves to heal up or add shield. Just before that, it added Storm Flip, a throwable bottle that can create a safe area in a storm or deal storm damage to opponents. That was interesting. But some say Fortnite's new airstrike weapon mimics Apex Legends, in which the character Bangalore throws a grenade that brings an airstrike to the vicinity. Depending on how you look at it, Fortnite's airstrike is either a logical next step in its hand-tossed lineup or a brazen way to challenge its competitor. Either way, Air Canister, anybody? Air Canister, you still play Fortnite? And if you haven't, well, this might give you a reason to come back and have fun and enjoy the game a little bit before you get annoyed by all the kids playing and have no idea of map awareness and you die over and over again and go into solo to try and recoup some of your dignity and decide to just hop on over to Team Rumble anyways, because at least if you play Team Rumble, you have a 50-50 shot at winning instead of 1 in 100 chance of winning. That's at least my thoughts on the whole matter. And yes, I've played plenty of Fortnite, and that's why I play Team Rumble most of the time, because I don't want to deal with it. I want to have fun playing the game, my enjoyment level, and have a 50-50 shot at winning instead of a 1 out of 100, because I guarantee you I'm not going to win. I'm just going to say that right now. And with that out of the way, that wraps up this episode of the Latest in Tech News. Thanks for tuning in, guys. New episodes every weekday. The Latest in Tech News can be found on every major platform, including Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, Stitcher, Overcast, and wherever else podcasts are heard. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to let us know by clicking that like button and by leaving a comment. Also, double check that you are subscribed so that you don't miss out on the next episode. I'm your host, Taylor American. Remember, for the latest in tech, gadget, and gaming news, visit TechNewsGadget.net. Pretty much keeping awesome, guys, and I'll see you on the flip side.